Series. I am Chaitra Vedalapalli. I am the co-founder and also president of Women in Cloud. So I want to welcome all of you to be here joining us today. With me, I have some amazing speakers. We have Right Honorable Kim Campbell. With me joining is also Kate Roberts, and with Giovanna Mangiarelli and Olivia. So we are so excited to have all of you here today. And today we basically want to take time to celebrate and also acknowledge what's happening with COVID-19. So all the things will come together and you get to hear what is in store for all of us. We'll take another 3 to 4 minutes. So I want to have you guys take the chat space and let us know what is keeping you excited these days, because we are all in lockdown, and what does that excitement looks like. So go ahead and share in the webinar chat, and what's motivated you to join our virtual brunch. So let's take just 2 minutes and get that, and we can wait for others. We had over 60+ people who have signed up for this webinar, so we want to give them enough time for them to join. Sounds good? Yep. What's keeping me excited is I get to do calligraphy. So I have learned how to do calligraphy. So this is a new skill I learned over the last 4 weeks staying at home. And that's keeping me motivated because I'm learning new skills. And what motivated me to join and the entire community of Women in Cloud, really things that we are able to take action on, even in the midst where everything feels gloomy and dark and overwhelmingly sad. We as a community has been able to break through and start to do micro actions, which is helping the community to take action. So that's what is keeping me motivated. I love it, Carmen. Yes, spring is here and flowers are blooming. I'm in Seattle. I'm waiting for the sun to come out so we can celebrate. So Giovanna, before we get started, what is getting you excited these days?
You know what? So as an entrepreneur, as many of us are on this call, I've started doing Qigong and yoga every day. And I feel amazing about that because it's about rebalancing the lifestyle, right? Like I think that that's something that we talk about a lot. As busy and active as we are as women on this call, right? It's always something I think that it's at everyone's forefront is how do I have like a healthy, balanced, happy life and also be amazing and do all the stuff that I'm doing. And so yeah, I've really weighed into healthy eating, sleeping, yoga, Qigong, and I'm really excited about that. And I just find that my days are flowing so much more naturally. And even I feel more productive in my work as a result of the more natural pace with which I'm working. So I feel really good about that. And we fostered a guinea pig.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yes.
That is fantastic.
Yes, because guinea pigs need homes during COVID. And so we have fostered one and he's very sweet. He's 9 months old.
Oh, fantastic. That is so cool.
That's what's keeping me busy. Or rather, that's one of the highlights of right now.
Oh, fantastic. I think we can get started, Giovanna, if you're okay with it.
I think that sounds great. Yes.
Perfect. So let's move to the next slide. So I want to really welcome everyone today. We have really action-packed virtual brunch. If you have your coffee, please sip your coffee and your croissant and have fun today. It's going to be fun. So I'm actually going to be the moderator for some of the section, but Giovanna will be one. But today we have really amazing speakers who we have curated for you. We have Right Honorable Kim Campbell. She was the 19th Prime Minister of Canada. And she was the first Prime Minister of Canada who's a woman. So we are so excited to have you. Welcome, Kim. Miss Kim, welcome. And with me, I also have Kate Roberts. She's the co-founder of Maverick Collective. And Giovanna and Kate met at the Davos event, and they basically mastered the whole experiences around the 21 Days of Economic Access campaign. So welcome, Kate. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say and how you can inspire the entire community to take action. Going to the next slide, what we have today is a couple of things which we want to do. Is some of you are already know about Women in Cloud, some you don't. So I want to take a moment to talk about who we are and what we are doing. So we are a community-led economic development initiative. We are really taking action to create $1 billion in economic access for women entrepreneurs by 2030 by partnerships with corporates as well as the legislator and the community owners. The way we work in this particular space is really through building a community where we can provide access to network of people through our events and programs and online network. Second is the accelerator, which we are very, very proud of. This is an immersive readiness programming to win enterprise contracts and opportunities on global stage, along with showcasing the next, the entrepreneurs who are really building cloud technology. And the third one is the public policy advancement, that we are basically developing recommendations and policy with the legislators and corporation to unlock the procurement vehicles. So we all know that the COVID is here, and I want to acknowledge that because this is something that we are going to be in a lockdown position for next a month or maybe 2 months, up to 3 months. We don't know what the landscape is. And it has put a lot of impact on the women entrepreneurs. And this disruption that has created in the economic development is pretty immense, from losing lives to losing opportunities, and also ensuring that we are creating a space for us to really leap forward into the future. So what we are working together with the community is to fight as a collective community to create the prosperity. And this is something that we are actively addressing it. As a community, we all need to come together. And I'm looking up to all of you to make that change and also help us identify opportunities to create that prosperity in your local communities. Now, today what we are here is to celebrate. And in the midst of gloominess, we still want to celebrate because we have done some amazing work together as a collective unit. If you remember, 2 years ago, we started the Women in Cloud initiative, and with the whole intention to create $1 billion in economic access. One of the effort was to create an economic awareness campaign around $1 billion and how we go about doing that. And that campaign was launched this year on the International Women's Day. And we did some really amazing pieces of work in the last 1.5 months, and we want to kind of celebrate that. The first we did was we passed a proclamation at the state where both the House as well as the Senate actually passed a motion for Women in Cloud. And we had Senator Patty Kudrer basically led that work along with Vandana Slatter on the House, and we were able to do it. And it was spectacular because now we have set the bar on what that economic access should look like and collectively how we develop programs to advance women entrepreneurs. The second thing we also launched was the Cloud Accelerator. We were supposed to do it in New York on March 19th. After the lockdown, we couldn't. So literally within a week, we had to turn the entire accelerator to be a digital accelerator using the Zoom technology. And we were able to do it. And last week, we had 13 entrepreneurs selected to go through this program. And for next 6 weeks, we will be working with them and helping them to really get ready to win enterprise contracts. So I can't thank enough the entrepreneurs as well as the entire Women in Cloud to coming together to support all the entrepreneurs in our ecosystem. And then we also launched the 21 Days of Economic Access campaign on the International Women's Day. This one was a milestone. It was one of those decisions with Giovanna to say, do we want to go about doing this, or should we do it? Because we are entering a world of COVID. And after working with all our advisors, they said, no, it is the right time. We have to go in and we have to set a bar for how we need to operate in the future and in the current state. So this particular campaign was launched, so very excited of what the outcomes are, and you get to hear today what the outcomes we accomplished. In the midst of the whole campaign, we were also able to drive the economic impact survey, because we were trying to figure out, should we create resources, should we create new programs? However, working with our legislators, they said, how about you prepare an economic impact report for us, roll out an impact survey, and that survey allows us to see what is missing, what is happening with our entrepreneurs. So that one will help us guide the legislative work. So we were so excited, and I want to thank Founders Live CEO Nick, who came in and said, yes, I raised my hand, I want to do it. And along with that, we had the UN community, the M12, Microsoft alumni, the Voices of Innovation from Microsoft, as well as the IMCP. All the partners came together and they rolled out the campaign. I can't tell you how powerful the data that we are collecting helps us shape the legislative. One of the aha moment that we all got is the SBA programs that are there in US does not account for women entrepreneurs. We are left out in the economic stimulus plan. So what does that look like? So we are working with the legislators to figure out what are the programs we need to tweak in the existing programming so women are not left behind. So my question to all of you right now is, if you are an entrepreneur, have you completed your COVID-19 impact survey? If you have, thank you so much. If you have not, please take it. And if you are not an entrepreneur, please share it with your community of entrepreneurs and business owners, so we have enough data to really provide the right recommendations and the right capabilities that we need in our current situation as well as future, so we can create the economic prosperity. Let's take 10 seconds. Perfect. So now I actually want to pass the baton to Giovanna Mingarelli. She is the Women in Cloud ambassador and also founder of MNC Consulting and MC2, who has partnered with WiC to scale the campaign across the North America. So for 20 years, Giovanna has worked in the field of political as well as digital communication. And she's also the member of the Government of Canada's Treasury Board Secretariat and also an external advisory board for Talent Cloud, who's developing the future of the work for Canada's public service. She has been a parliamentary witness and a keynote speaker related to the advancement of young women in politics and digital democracy through her work. And I really would love to invite her today to talk about the insights and learning along with Olivia Beckhold, so that you get to learn what the impact we have created through the economic access campaign. So Giovanna, I want to pass the baton to you.
Thank you so much, Chaitra. And I want to just take a moment to acknowledge the incredible efforts of Chaitra and her co-founder, Karen Facio, who have spent 3 years working on building out this $1 billion economic access campaign. And right now we're starting to scale it across North America, but a tremendous amount of effort and time has gone into this project already. And seeing the proclamation at the state level in Washington and seeing the House, and I was there in Olympia, and seeing the House of Representatives and the Senate pass a proclamation in support actually means there are a whole lot of things that we can do at the legislative level now, just in the state of Washington. And so a little bit of background on the 21 Days of Economic Access campaign, which we're all here to celebrate today. So basically, this largely social media campaign is to show public support for this $1 billion initiative, for which much work is going on behind the scenes. And I'm going to share a little bit about what that looks like now. So the campaign started rolling out in January of this year with an announcement that Kate Roberts and I made after a breakfast that she was hosting at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos about women in the future. And that video that we recorded was subsequently aired at the Women in Cloud Summit just a couple of days later here in Seattle at the Microsoft campus to hundreds of executives in the STEM field. And so far, up until the actual launch of the social media campaign, there's a tremendous amount of support already. And behind the scenes, even before this campaign was announced, we've been in discussions with the Canadian government, including Minister Anita Anand, who's the Canadian Minister of Procurement, Minister Miriam Monsef, who's the Minister for Women and Gender Equality, as well as Minister Joyce Murray, the Minister of Digital Democracy, all of whom have been tremendously supportive of our initiative in Canada. Basically right now we're working on an all-party motion in the House of Commons across parties, and we've met with all parties who have shown also support for this initiative. And we're working on a policy resolution for all parties to support this incredible initiative to essentially make available $1 billion in economic access through Canada's existing procurement vehicles, right? So I think it's important to note we're not asking for money, we're not asking for new money, we're asking for some very specific ways to align Women in Cloud's accelerator and AI technology, which includes a tool called Lisa that can actually read contracts for gender bias and identify gender bias and pull it out before contracts go to tender. And so what we offer as Women in Cloud is a combination of the public policy, so the public support for the $1 billion initiative through this widespread social media campaign, which Olivia will speak to in terms of some of the highlights from that, as well as the tools to be able to actually make this happen, and the educational resources to provide women entrepreneurs, and in particular SMEs, the capacity to bid on contracts and win them. And so what we're talking about is, we're really going deep into the institutions and the current vehicles that can actually enable us to see long-lasting change for women and our ability to win contracts. In addition to our public policy work with elected officials in Canada, we're also in discussions with Invest Ottawa, which is one of Canada's leading incubators in the nation's capital, to bring the Women in Cloud Accelerator to Canada. It's beginning in the capital, and which will basically train women in how to win the $1 million contracts once those are more available and we've removed gender bias. And as well, we've been sharing the COVID-19 Women in Cloud research report with our communities. We would invite everyone, again, to share that with your women entrepreneurial community, because we would like to present that to policymakers as soon as possible to highlight the issues that women are facing right now in the midst of COVID, right? This includes issues like contract freezing, and so many other things, right, that many of us will have experienced. Finally, before I hand this over to Olivia to share specific highlights about the social media campaign, I also want to note that today we celebrate our 21 Days of Economic Access campaign. The first phase has come to a close. We now move into phase 2, which is going to see much more robust engagement, an additional social media campaign centered around multi-partisan support in Canada, as well as more in-depth discussions around the accelerator and integrating the Lisa tool into the Canadian local context. And so all of that said, we are now in a position to welcome additional partners, right? And we're tremendously grateful for all of the partners who have joined us up until today. And we are now opening the door for new, both corporate and individual partners to join our team and to join the Women in Cloud team as part of our phase 2. So if you're interested or your company is interested in potentially collaborating with us or your nonprofit, we would invite you to reach out to Chaitra or myself directly after this call. And we have a partnership proposal overview that we would love to share with you and have a follow-up discussion. And on that note, I'm delighted to hand the floor over to my colleague, Olivia Bechtold, who's one of MNC Consulting's strategic partners for social media, who I've had the great pleasure and honor of working with for over 6 years now. She is a light and a beacon of fabulousness and amazing power in Ottawa, in the nation's capital, or the Canadian nation's capital. There are many nations on this call, but the Canadian nation's capital. And Olivia, I hand it to you to walk us through the 21 Days of Economic Access social media campaign, which is why many of you have joined the call.
Thank you, Giovanna. So I am very excited to share the successes of our 21 Days of Action campaign. We were able to work with and spotlight some very amazing women, including Senator Patty Kuderer, Gretchen O'Hara, Wendy Garcia, Gina Jorgensen, Margaret Dawson, Gabriella Schuster, and of course our keynote speakers today, Kim Campbell and Kate Roberts, among many other streamlining women that we're thrilled to have been able to put on a pedestal for this campaign. Some of the highlights of the campaign also include the reach of the hashtag. So the hashtag Empower Access on the screen now had a total reach of almost 600,000, which is amazing. We saw a lot of resharing and communication and engagement from the community. Lots of public, very positive sentiment. It was all extremely well accepted campaign, with 75% of campaign participants being women, which is great. That's who we're trying to empower. We were promoted by partners including Microsoft, UN Equals, Founders Live, IAMCP, M12, IdeaGen, Invest Ottawa, Startup Canada, and LSpark. The campaign saw engagement across 11 countries and 3 continents, so it truly was a global undertaking. And we had great traction from all of those engagement in all of those countries and continents. We saw some great input on the COVID-19 survey, which we encourage you to take and participate in still, which is open. And we also invite you to share your pledge for support on the Women in Cloud pledge, which is available on their website. So overall, it was an amazing campaign. We are so grateful to everyone who was involved and engaged and participated, and we very much look forward to launching phase 2 later this year. Giovanna, I'll pass it back to you now to introduce our keynote speakers for today.
Thank you so much, Olivia. So much amazing positive traction. So exciting. And I also want to highlight that there are a number of women that we've engaged to be part of our 21 Days of Economic Access campaign who have not yet been featured, who we did reach out to, who were identified as being, extraordinary women to be featured and to be engaged. They will actually, if you're on the call, and if not, they will actually be featured as part of our next phase of the campaign post-COVID. Or at least we hope that will end soon. And so we already have a slate of fabulous women. So if there are women that you think you would like to see featured as part of the campaign, by virtue of being on this call, please do refer their names to us and we can certainly have that conversation. It is my great privilege to now introduce our first keynote speaker, Kate Roberts. Kate is a social entrepreneur who works on combating the world's biggest issues affecting women. She's a humanitarian, a public speaker, an investor, and a fierce advocate for women and equality. In 2012, she co-founded Maverick Collective, a $100 million women's impact organization alongside Her Royal Highness Crown Princess of Norway, Mette Marit, and co-chaired by Melinda Gates, the co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. In 2007, Kate was named a Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum. She's been featured as a CNN hero and received the Jack Valenti AIDS Outstanding Achievement Award. Finally, and most recently, Kate has founded the Ikigai Company and Puissant.org, both new enterprises. And Puissant.org in particular is a social enterprise startup that's building a global movement for female sexual wellness and pleasure. Kate, off to you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Well, Giovanna, Chaitra, and Olivia, huge congratulations to you all. I absolutely love seeing the traction that you're having. It was a privilege to be part of your launch at Davos. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for inviting me here today. It was actually nice to put a dress on and some makeup and feel real again. So thank you. And also for the lovely introduction, Giovanna. What I was trying to think about what I could say today in these times that could be relevant and interesting. And I thought about telling you a little bit about my journey and my struggle also to get financing for the things that I really believe in. And I have spent the last 25 years in public health and philanthropy, working very, very hard to build a global health organization called PSI, which is now a $500 million global health organization, nonprofit, that works on these big diseases like malaria and Ebola and HIV and flu and SARS and Zika and all of these very similar types of diseases than that we're seeing now with COVID-19. And of course, they are very much getting involved in that because what PSI does is a lot of behavior change and also making health services and health products available to those who need them in the developing world. And the only way that we are really going to overcome this horrific struggle that we're in right now is if we all do change our behavior and the capital is raised to be able to really attack this virus head on. So for some 20 years, I've been working on combating a lot of these big diseases. And I very much remember SARS, I very much remember Zika and Ebola and the absolute freak out and the panic that happened across the world. But at the same time, I also realized that the importance of private capital to innovate and experiment and to test things out in the field, which is what we're doing now with COVID-19, right? We really need to understand this virus and we need to understand how it affects people and how it's carried. And I don't need to tell you, I'm sure you're all as glued to the news and Sanjay Gupta as I am, just hoping for a glimmer of light. But a number of years ago, I recognized the gap that there was for women, investing in women, and especially issues affecting women. And, women are our caregivers. We are the ones who juggle everything with business, with home, with family, with work, with we are the caregivers. And if you invest in women, you strengthen local communities, nations, and therefore the world. And so I saw an opportunity a number of years ago to start Maverick Collective as a philanthropy platform for women investors and philanthropists to be able to get involved in funding the early stages of a promising solution to some of these issues that my organization, PSI, was working on. We were very lucky to get the investment very quickly from Melinda Gates of $6 million. And she believed that we needed new models of philanthropy, of people getting engaged. And what we found is that women didn't want to just sit on boards and write checks. They really wanted to lean in and use their time, their talent, and their treasure in really leaning in and getting involved in what they were investing in. And it turned out to be an incredible opportunity to find new philanthropists, new sources of funding, but most importantly, also the knowledge that came with those philanthropists. And you know, we've now built it to a $100 million global innovation tool for PSI and others to find new ways of combating and solutions around these big issues that we're working on. And if we think back to the Ebola days, right, that just felt like an absolute horrendous, you know, thing that was happening around the world, and we were able to overcome it. Why? Because we were encouraging hand washing. You know, we all leaned in. We looked at all the expertise that we had. We used some of this philanthropic money to be able to test things out and really scale very quickly. Yes, that was Maverick Collective. I'm still very much involved in that. I will always be the founder, but I have more recently, as Giovanna was telling you, started, of course, only me starts two new things in the moment of global crisis. But in the beginning, you were asking, well, what keeps us motivated? And quite frankly, you know, I'm very happy when I'm building something, but also when I've recognized a gap. And with Maverick Collective, you know, I started to get lots of calls from people saying, well, how do I do a Maverick Collective? How do I, you know, raise capital for the mission that I'm really interested in? And how do I do that in a way that is sustainable, that, you know, breaks through the clutter of what everybody is doing? And so the Ikigai company is really helping these individuals and corporations to find their Ikigai. And an Ikigai is the Japanese word for long, happy, healthy, fulfilled life full of purpose. And I like to say it's the thing that makes you want to get up in the morning and walk down the stairs to your laptop, as we are doing right now, to do our work. I also believe that women, we're half of the global population, and everything I will do will have a gender lens of investing in women, I was so pleased to hear that you were driving this Women in Cloud initiative. Also because, you know, STEM and technology are so vital for humanity. It's, you know, especially technology right now is going to be one of the major drivers of solving these problems. And especially making access to women's health products, contraception, family planning, sexual wellness, and certainly at PSI and through Maverick Collective, we're using technology as a way, as I know they did in China, with really trying to combat COVID-19 and the coronavirus. It really was technology that helped them to get this under control. So it's absolutely vital that capital is unlocked. Right now for Poussant, which is the female sexual wellness company that I'm starting, you know, I'm not gonna lie, it's a for-profit, and you know, we had a number of investors in the beginning, and now they are, you know, freaking out, as we all are, with all the assets that we are lucky to have, right, as people living in the developing world. We are trying to hold on to those. We're not sure, we're uncertain. What I will say is, and it really is a moment of great hope for us, where we have to keep going with all of these campaigns that we are working on, whether they be for-profit. And I do believe that everything for social impact needs to have a for-profit drive through it, because that's what's going to make it sustainable. And that's why I also want to start this female wellness company, because it's going to be a way for women to take control of their bodies, to have the health products that they need to be healthy, to be powerful, to be in charge, and then really build this sustainable social enterprise that gives women access to the health products and services that they actually need. So you know, on that note, I don't know how many minutes I have left, but on that note, what I will say is, again, I will repeat myself, this will be short-lived. I know we feel that it's going to go on forever. It won't. We shouldn't be freaking out. We should be getting up every morning, putting some makeup on, feeling good about ourselves, exercising, eating healthy, and be very focused in your mission of what you want to accomplish. Surround yourself with people like yourselves who have the same drive and mission. Use this time at home to research, to reconnect with people that can help you. You know, one of the reasons I started Maverick Collective was it's a collective of badass women, and Giovanna met a few of them at Davos, who are just extraordinary. And you know, I get goosebumps thinking about them because, you know, we're all on the same track of wanting to solve the world's problems for women. And, you know, we're putting our time, treasure, and talent all in that journey together. And collectively working is the most beautiful thing that does create change around the world. And then, of course, with respect to you, Kim, you know, partnering with governments, partnering with the corporate sector and the private sector is key. My World of Philanthropy plays that very, very important part at the beginning of innovation, so that then governments and the private sector can take solutions to scale. And that's, again, how we are going to get through this most recent pandemic with COVID-19. So that is, I would love some questions at the end of this. I would love to be able to help any of you that are struggling with whatever your endeavor is, even if it's just to stay motivated, which can be very, very hard right now when we are locked up in our houses. And I hope you are all staying home, staying safe, and staying healthy. Very, very important that we change our behavior and we really listen to what the government is telling us to do right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Kate, so much for your words of inspiration. I think, you know, especially the need to stay connected to one another is hugely important. Women in Cloud is actually hosting semi-regular happy hours for all the women in this extraordinary community. And so please, you know, feel free to join and to register for those as well. They're super informal. A number of us joined the first one and loved them. And that's just one way that you can stay in touch with other women who are experiencing the same things that you are, because I promise we have many commonalities in terms of our COVID experiences. So thank you again, Kate, for your words. I'm now really, truly honored to introduce the Right Honorable Kim Campbell. As Canada's first and only woman Prime Minister, Kim Campbell's life has been a life of firsts. From the age of 16, when she became the first female student body president of her high school, until 30 years later as the 19th Prime Minister of Canada, Ms. Campbell has spent much of her life breaking barriers for women. She served at all 3 levels of government in Canada. After leaving politics, she served as the Canadian Consul General in Los Angeles, then taught at the Harvard Kennedy School, after which she became an international leader of leaders with organizations such as the International Women's Forum and the Club de Madrid. The Honorable Kim Campbell, I hand it over to you.
There, now I can unmute. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Wonderful. Thanks, Giovanna, and thanks everybody. And I'm really delighted to be part of this. I'm just going to put my little voice memo on so I can keep track of how long I'm talking. I hope, can I see how long I'm talking with this? I suppose I very much enjoyed Kate's comments. Thank you so much. And I'm really full of admiration for what you're doing. And my approach is a little bit different because I was asked to address my own experience and views on the issue of economic exclusion. And I said, why, why are we here? Why do we have to have an accelerator? Why do we have to focus on preparing women-owned and run small and medium enterprises to compete on government contracts. And if we look back for the last several decades, there's been a lot of research that shows that women, even when they get their chance in the corporate world, often find it a very uncongenial environment, and basically find themselves stymied in terms of being able to rise in corporate structures, and they give up and create their own businesses. And that, as we can see when it comes to competing with large corporations for procurement, et cetera, can be a disadvantage, however satisfying it might be to be able to create an enterprise where you create your own rules and live by it. About 3 years ago, in April of 2017, the Atlantic magazine, which is a terrific magazine, had a cover story about, the question was, why is Silicon Valley so horrible to women? And it's very significant in terms of what we're talking about here, because one of the interesting things they point out was this mentality in the tech area in Silicon Valley, that somehow tech was not something that came naturally to women, that women were not really that skilled in it. And that moron at Google who wrote that memo saying that women weren't really cut out for tech was quite rightly fired, because not only, I mean, it wasn't because he was politically incorrect or was offending the ladies, it's because he was tragically, seriously, and criminally wrong. So one of the things I want to say to you, because when I was a little girl, I turned 73 on March the 10th, so the oldest among you. But when I was a young girl, I was pretty smart. And people would say, oh, Kim, you're the smartest girl I've ever met. And I'd think, oh, well, how are the other poor wretches faring? And I thought that was, probably a compliment, but it wasn't a compliment, because I wasn't the smartest girl they ever met. And there were plenty more girls just as smart as I am. But at that time, if you were smart and you were ambitious, and I was a leader in many different ways, you were accepted if you were seen as an anomaly. But if you were the thin edge of a wedge of a whole bunch of other women, young girls or women who wanted to participate, you were a danger. So, but people would also say to me, you're really smart, Kim, but really, boys are smarter than girls, because where is the female Mozart? Where are the female geniuses? It's really men who do that. And at that time, I didn't have any answers. I do now, because they do exist. I won't get into the whole question that Mozart's older sister was probably just as talented as he was. Well, unfortunately, when she reached puberty, her father made her stay home and stop taking her around to the courts of Europe where she could develop her musical ability. Mozart himself admired her enormously and looked up to her, so he didn't think she was in any way a pale reflection of himself. Virginia Woolf once said that Anonymous is likely a woman. But what is also true is that in the area of tech and science, some of the most important foundational work in mathematics and physics has been done by women. And if you read their stories, it's so amazing how they had to fight against barriers to be able to get the studying, to get the training, and to be able to make their contributions. They often couldn't give papers. The woman who identified the greenhouse gas qualities of carbon dioxide, she was a woman. She couldn't give the paper at a scientific meeting. A man had to give her paper. So when you see the barriers that women face, what is so extraordinary is that women still did this incredible foundational work. And I suggest, I don't have time to go into it now, I mean, the Emmy Noethers of this world, the Sofia Kovalevskis, people, Emmy Noether, Albert Einstein said she was the greatest woman in mathematics, but she was his equal. She solved a number of the problems in his own theory of relativity. She created a theorem which united two different parts of physics. She was extraordinary. So you go on to the Perimeter Institute website, that's a Canadian website, and you look at their little article on women in science, and you will see for centuries extraordinary women who have done the foundational work. So if people say to me, well, where were the women geniuses? I say, well, how about Emmy Noether? How about Sofia Kovalevskis? How about those three African-American women who were featured in Hidden Figures, who were key to the modern space program? The last one has just died. There are extraordinary people. So the first thing you have to know if you're a woman in tech is you belong there. You're not an anomaly. You're not something new and different. You are part of a continuum of brilliant women who have changed the way we see and understand the world, and who have been enormous pioneers in the development of computer science. In the early days, people thought computers were sort of boring, so they let the women do it. And then when they realized it was where the action was, they elbowed them out of the way. But I think it's very, very important to know that history and to understand where you fit in. Do not apologize for being a woman in tech. But the problem is that very often you're not leading a big organization because it's very uncongenial, because you have these cultures, these frat boy cultures. I mean, these guys are so unevolved. I mean, they're just unbelievable cases of arrested development. And what mature woman wants to work with that? You can't work with that. This wonderful article in The Atlantic, and I really recommend it. It's April 2017. It's worth looking at. But they talk about how these companies realized that they had to create more diversity. So they start teaching about unconscious bias. And I created a leadership program at the University of Alberta. And I used to teach this stuff about implicit attitudes or unconscious bias. The problem is that they teach it to these people in companies. And so everybody thinks, oh, I'm biased, you're biased, we're all biased. Oh, no. The point about teaching about unconscious bias and implicit attitudes is to understand that it's not just a human failure, a failing where we tend to see the world according to the landscape in which we've grown up. And if there aren't any women doing certain things or people of color doing certain things, we think they don't do them. What is important is to take the next step and say, our unconscious biases are based on falsehoods. Our unconscious biases are based on misunderstandings of how the world works, and that we have to undo those. One of the themes of our opening session, the third term of the college that I created, was called learning and unlearning. And there's a lot of unlearning that has to be done for people to understand what women bring to the table. So one of the things I want to say is, so the first thing I want to say is, understand the richness that women have brought to all the fields that you're operating in. Never feel apologetic. Never feel that you have to somehow compensate for being a woman. What you may lack are the skills that would come from being in power. And what also strikes me about this is that in many ways, what you're dealing with in terms of wanting to bid on government contracts, et cetera, or large corporate contracts, is it's not unlike the challenge of women who want to be in politics. Because in politics, it's about power. And people don't give it up easily. When you are bidding on contracts, other people want them. And they are going to find every way they can to elbow you off the stage so that we can get them. Understand what you're dealing with. There are serious interests at conflict here. And nobody is going to give it to you, which is why you need to have the skills. You need to be able to compensate for what you have as a small business, the lack of opportunity and scope you may have had to be skillful in bidding on these things. And that's why this accelerator is so exciting and so interesting, to empower people to be able to do it. But I want to just say one other thing about this. I have spent much of my life working for the advancement of women. And after having political retirement thrust upon me by the Canadian electorate, I've done that in many countries in the world. And incidentally, one of the things that I experienced, I'm the first woman to have been Prime Minister of Canada. I'm the only woman ever to have been elected leader of a party that could have formed a government, whether they did or not. And what that meant was that nobody who looked or sounded like me had ever done that before. So people who are invested in the status quo were very uncomfortable. Somebody recently tweeted a cute little video of me opening the international plowing competition in Waterloo, Ontario when I was Prime Minister. And I was looking and thinking, what a cute young thing I was, and boy, I was a mere 46. But what is interesting is that the people were often very excited to have a woman as Prime Minister. But the people in the Ottawa Press Gallery who thought they owned the political process couldn't get over the fact that I didn't look or sound like any of the other people who'd been there before. And you are not going to look or sound like a lot of the other people who have won the contracts, got the recognition, etc. But what is so important is that it's bigger than just our individual contracts. It's bigger than just individual positions. We are now facing a world where there is pushback on the advancement of women. One of the things that comes with resurgent authoritarianism, which we are seeing, I was a Soviet specialist in my youth, and as soon as I saw Donald Trump playing footsie with Vladimir Putin, I thought, we got a problem here. The legitimization of misogynistic speech, all of this stuff, this is a threat to us. And everything that you do to create credibility and strength for women in your areas of activity, in the economy, in your businesses. You are tiles in the mosaic of progress, tiles in the mosaic of a world that enables women to be who they are and make the contributions that they can make. And it's incredibly important. The Pew Research has said that the best indication of the social, economic, and political advancement of a country is the status of its women. It matters. It matters far beyond your lives. Every time you can be a role model to not just a young girl, but to a young boy about who gets to do those jobs and what qualities and skills women have, you are a part of something very much bigger than your own life. And as I get older and I see this pushback, it worries me no end. Because at the end of the day, stereotypes are attitudes about groups that destroy individual lives. And we need to fight those stereotypes that are just unfounded about the capacity of women in all of the fields. Many of the research on leadership shows that women have actually outperformed men on leadership qualities. But if people don't think somebody who looks like you can lead, you won't get the chance. And that's why I'm so grateful for the Angela Merkels and the Jacinta Ardern's and people like that around the world who are making a name for women leaders and making people sit up and say, yes, women are strong, they can do it. So I want to say how happy I am to support what you're doing in this project. I think it's incredibly important. And Kate, this notion of women's bodies, and you know, one of the big taboos is that women are not supposed to be sexual. You know, but I think if people didn't realize they were sexual, they wouldn't have spent so much effort over the centuries trying to control us and lock us up and keep us away from temptation, because we are. Anyhow, on that note, I just want to say I'm happy to answer any questions, but that from my perspective, I see you as part of a bigger picture, which involves the protection of the status of women and the ability of women to make the contributions. You know, I saw an article, I was reading about recently that suggested that patriarchy actually really got its start in the agricultural era of human development with the development of the plow. Because in the more sort of hoeing and tilling forms of agriculture, men and women do it equally. But the plow, as it originally was invented, really required that upper body strength of men. And it also created a different approach towards property and defining property and what was yours. And that was part of the process that led to the separation of women and the creation of women's domains, etc. Well, I was at the International Plowing competition and jumped on a tractor and could plow away. So I think the notion of any definition of gender roles that's based on you need to be smart to have, you know, have the oxen running the plow is a little bit out of date. So let's do whatever we can to drop kick it into oblivion and show what women really can do and what we bring to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim Campbell. And that was incredibly inspiring, very insightful, and very uplifting, I think, for the community. Thank you so much for your support. We're really, again, honored and delighted that you took the time to be here today and to support our initiative. So Kim Campbell has actually given a number of interviews that you can find in podcasts, TV, and print about this very issue, about the need for gender equality in various areas. And I would encourage anyone that is curious in learning more to do some of that research. And of course, we do have questions now that I'm going to kick off the Q&A session with. So the first question is from Karen Facio, who is the co-founder of Women in Cloud. And the question is, where, and I think this is for both Kate and Kim, where do you recommend we focus to help us, use this opportunity to advance our objectives for equal economic access? Right, so I think the question is, like, in the context of right now, the world that we're in, how can we use this opportunity to advance our objectives for equal economic access, broadly? So either Kim or Kate, this is open to you.
Well,
Kim,
I would
would you
just
go ahead?
take the piece that you think resonates with you and work on that. I mean, I think you've heard a great deal, and over to Kate, but I think that, you know, you need to figure out what of this whole project resonates with you and relates to what you're doing, and you know, find the pieces that will strengthen you in doing what you need to do in your own particular agenda. But Kate.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say that, listen, we're all lionesses, right? I truly believe that if you are passionate about something and you really believe it, and you have articulated your mission and your passion and what you want to do, you just have to get it out there and find. And this platform is a great way of doing that, right? Connecting with others, networking, and just getting to the right people who believe in you. And what I know from my own experience is people give to people. They don't give to missions. They don't give to an organization. People give to people. And if you can really articulate yourself and deliver whatever it is that you're trying to do with precision and passion, you will get the investment that you need for what you're trying to achieve. So do research, try to get to the people that you think can give to what you're trying to achieve, and articulate yourself. But again, people give to people. That's it. And it's not money that changes the world, it's people.
Thank you so much. And Kim, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope. Super.
Okay, the next question is for you, Kim, from Ellen Feeney. Her question is, where do you recommend we focus to help use this opportunity to advance our objectives through venture capitalists and legislative participation? So I guess, like at this time, is there anything we can do during COVID on the legislative side, given everyone is preoccupied with COVID, right? The equal economic access, right? This whole campaign, there are so many other priorities. Is there a way we can continue in the midst of everything going on right now, and how can we move this forward in the midst of this global issue?
I think prepare to go in when the opportunity arises. I mean, one of the advantages of this, enforced lockdown is that we do have the opportunity to do some thinking, and as this technology shows, people need to get together and chat and share ideas. But I think the point is not to say, oh, well, we can't do anything, so we won't do anything. I think Kate was making very clear that she's still doing stuff, whatever. But be ready for the opportunities that will reemerge when the lights come on again, and we're back in a functioning society, because what it is that you're doing here really matters. So prepare yourself, and I'm not sure that there's nothing that can be done. I think there are some. I'm not sure that every government minister is, spending 24/7 on COVID. I may be wrong, but I mean, I think they have to run their departments and whatever. But I think taking the opportunity to reach out, build the alliances, prepare yourself for whatever presentations or things that you want to do. Just get ready.
Just keep going. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. The next question is for Kate from Nehal Mehta. The question is, are you supporting women founders in healthcare in Canada with clinical research on COVID ID? Or research on COVID-19.
Yeah, we actually, PSI works with the Canadian government really to get funding. PSI only works in the developing countries. So we do not, Maverick Collective is not a foundation. Maverick was created to really help PSI as a global health organization to innovate. So we don't actually fund individuals that are not working in the developing world, but we do we do form collaborations and collectives of people who are working on the same mission. So I'm sure that PSI is partnering with experts and innovators in Canada. I just don't know who.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I did actually want to just add to that last question as the Honorable Kim was speaking. I was thinking to myself that right now, with everything that's going on with COVID-19, people are either glued to the news in despair, or they're really thinking about their own purpose. And, you know, we have a lot of time to think right now. And actually now is a really good time to reach out to people with purpose. And, you know, when I said, you know, money doesn't, you know, solve problems, people do. What I mean by that is when you ask somebody for money, you get help. And when you ask somebody for help, you get money. So I would really, really encourage you to find people right now in the midst of this crisis who perhaps are looking for purpose, and that could be helping you to achieve your whatever mission it is you're working on.
Right on.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are at the hour. So Kim and Kate, would you have maybe 5 more minutes so we can take one more question and wrap it up?
I'm fine. It's up to you whether we have the space.
Okay. And Chaitra, is that okay with you if we push over for another couple of minutes?
Yes.
Great. And if anyone has to log off because you have another meeting or something very important, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming. There's so many great questions and such a rare opportunity to speak with such extraordinary women. You know, if we can have the extra time, we'll take it. So the next question is for Kim from Nancy Watt. She loved your reference to Virginia Woolf. Virginia Woolf, she quotes, also said, "The history of men's opposition to women's emancipation is more interesting perhaps than the story of that emancipation itself," end quote. And she would like to know, Nancy would like to know, where you think we are in that story right now.
Not as far ahead as I would have hoped. There's been a lot of change since I was young. Certainly a lot in law and policy. I mean, one of the advantages of women actually becoming legislators is that they address issues, often across party lines, that change law and policy that support women in many ways. But I wouldn't have thought until November 2016 how much misogyny and pushback there was really hovering under the surface. And it really required somebody like Donald Trump to give people permission to articulate it. And I think it's very frightening. And I do think that that's why leadership matters. I think people often take their cue from people. I think this is why I think when you have a pulpit, you have the capacity to speak to people. It carries with it a huge moral responsibility. So we are going to have to try and untangle that. So there will never be a time where we can go to bed, pull the covers over our head and say we've solved it all. It's all going to work on autopilot. We will always have to struggle for it because it does involve contests over power and opportunity, etc. But I think that we've accomplished a lot. But I think that the rights of women are still in some parts of the world very much non-existent. But also even in our peaceable kingdom, I think that there are those who would like to push back. And that's, as I say, the resurgent authoritarianism. Part of that, part of what goes with fascism is, in fact, Kinderküche, Kinderküche, you know, women, children, kitchen, church, not corporate leadership.
Thank you so much. My next question is from Karen Facio. It's for both of you. And the question is, what's your take on women in board participation? So while we're also fighting the fight in our careers and businesses, we are getting pressure to also demonstrate power and success from a board seat. Is it something you recommend women focus effort and invest in themselves to do?
Okay.
I absolutely 1000% think that women's participation in boards is crucial. It's crucial for our own development. It's for me, it's not even a question. We absolutely should be on boards, and boards should have 50% participation of women and 50% of men. There are all sorts of services now that help train you both in finding opportunities on boards, for profit and non-profit boards. It's just, you know, it's a no-brainer for me. And I also think that something I've wanted to say here, you know, we're all women advocates. That's why we're on this webinar today. But I don't think the discussion needs to be men versus women, because, you know, we need men for our own evolution, for our own equality. We need men. We need men to accept women's sexuality. And I don't think we should try to be on a board and look like a man and wear a pantsuit. You know, I think we should use what we have, which is our sexuality, our smarts, our brains, our ideas, our creativity, all the things that make us successful in our day-to-day. That's why we need to be on boards. And so I think we need to change the discussion around when we talk about men versus women. Listen, men do some things that women can't do. Women do a lot of things that men also can't do. And I think it's turning up as equals to the table and demanding that. We should demand that we are, you know, have that right at the table, at the board seat, and we prove ourselves then, right? Then we prove ourselves. We don't let men talk over us. You know, we have just as much right to be there at the board seat than a man, but it's not about men versus women.
I always say the advancement of women is not women versus men. It's the women and men who get it working to persuade the women and men who don't get it. And women can often be our barriers as well. But I would say that why it's important to have good representation is that whoever sits on the board, and it doesn't just apply to women, it applies to any kind of non-prototypical person who sits on a board. You have to be able to speak in your own voice. You have to be able to be who you are. And if you are alone and you are expected to fit in with this male culture, it becomes very difficult. And that's why I like the approach the Norwegians took to putting, to having quotas, gender quotas on boards. They said there shall be no fewer than 40% of either sex. But it's this notion that men are the default category and you're doing women a favor by having them on. When Prime Minister Trudeau created his first gender balanced cabinet, one of the foreign leaders said to him, why did you have a gender balanced cabinet? Why didn't you just appoint on merit? And he said, if I'd appointed on merit, I'd have had more women. And I think we sometimes forget, and we think that if we're having women on, if we're bringing them, that somehow we're pushing men off and doing a big favor to women. There's some very interesting research that shows that when you have more women on boards, the men actually perform better. And one of the payoffs of having women on boards is getting rid of a lot of mediocre men.
One thing to add to that, if I may, trillions of dollars are passing down into the hands of women now. You know, the family money is going into the hands of women. And I think also with everything that's happened in the women's movement, with Me Too, and, you know, everything that's happening, I think a lot of corporations and nonprofits are actually realizing, even if it's not the reason to do it, that women are going to bring a lot more to their business. I recently had a discussion with a private bank where all the partners were men. And I asked them, well, why don't you have any women partners? And they said, well, they're off having babies and they haven't, you know, they came up with some bullshit answer. And I reminded them that very soon their biggest clients are going to be the women as we inherit the money and start working in the family offices. And so I think there is a lot to be said for now is our time. It really is. Now is our time, and we need to jump on this opportunity because it has all been lined up for us.
Absolutely. And I think to wrap up this one particular question, you know, with Women in Cloud, the narrative of it's about women and men who support women's advancement in STEM, that's really, really been the key message of Women in Cloud. And we have some incredible men who were featured as part of the 21 Days of Economic Access from both the public sector, the private sector. And these are the men that will really help us in our mission to accomplish our goals. And so I think we're all very much on the same page here. Okay, do we have time for 2 more questions?
I think we can wrap it up, Giovanna.
We're gonna wrap it up now?
Dropping off, yeah. People are dropping off the call, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Well, so thank you both, Kim Campbell and Kate Roberts, for an incredible and inspiring Q&A session and for your extraordinary contributions. I'm going to hand it back over to Chaitra now to drive this home.
First, just thank you. I personally took away, like, I'm more energized, more motivated, and committed for creating economic access for women in the tech industry. So Kate, Ms. Campbell, Giovanna, Olivia, fantastic work. Like, I can't tell you, I'm inspired. A couple of things that I took away personally was it's a short-lived, COVID is a short-lived. Take this time to think and reset your mindset. So that was one thing I took away. And second is understand the richness of life that is around you and go out and contribute, because people give to people. So there are 3 actions I have for each one of you, and I want you to take collective action. Please take the pledge that allows us to have a camaraderie of saying how we are going to collectively work together to create economic access. Second, partner with us for the Phase 2 campaign. If you saw, you know, reaching a 600,000 people in just one campaign in the midst of COVID, imagine what a Phase 2 campaign would look like. So we want you to partner. Third is take your COVID-19 impact survey. If you want to partner with us, please do. So as a partner, you do get early access to the report before anyone else will. So please join that particular campaign with us. And with that, I actually want to say thank you and have a fantastic day, and take micro action. Keep yourself positive, because people give to people. So join our community. We are really excited to have you today. Thank you.